So this is the story of the nurse who very sadly committed suicide after the hoax call by two Australian radio presenters. And David Icke has put out an article today, a very interesting article, in which he said that really what has happened with these radio presenters is a bit over the top, because, as he said, whether you find what they did funny or not, it really was a harmless prank, and they can't therefore be blamed, although they are being blamed totally for the death of this poor woman. But one thing that David hasn't said, and I don't blame him because he hasn't been in the workplace over recent years, and things have changed very dramatically over the last few years, and I'm going to try and describe how. Now, I don't know whether I'm the only person to wonder this, but something about what the newspapers have said really doesn't have the ring of truth. And I'm just going to quote from, I think it's the Daily Mail Online is the article I've got up here, and it said about this lady who committed suicide, described as popular, quiet and profoundly caring. She is said to have made clear to her family the depth of her anxiety when the prank was broadcast. Others have described her as feeling lonely and confused, and I stress this, though the hospital said it supported her and stressed she did not face any disciplinary action. Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't have the ring of truth to me. I don't really believe that something like this would have happened without the hospital taking any action. This is a situation where Kate Middleton, who is regarded almost as a goddess these days, was in hospital for morning sickness, and the details of her condition were broadcast. In other words, private information about her was broadcast over the airways. However that happened, I really don't believe the hospital would have done nothing. Of course, this is pure speculation. It may not be the case, but if it isn't the case, then this hospital trust is behaving completely differently from any other workplace in the United Kingdom at the moment. So I'm just going to tell you what the average workplace in the United Kingdom would have done if it found that one of its employees, or in this case two of its employees, had acted in a way which, for whatever reason, embarrassed the employer. What would normally happen is that the employee would not actually face disciplinary action immediately. Instead, the employee would be told that there was going to be, and they call it the same thing in all employments, a fact-finding investigation. And this fact-finding investigation would be outside the disciplinary process, but during the investigation, facts would be crystallized, which would then be used in the disciplinary investigation itself. Now, I haven't been through this process myself, I hasten to add, but I do know people who have. And I can say that it is very stressful for people, particularly people who have, as this nurse obviously did, a great deal of pride in their job, etc. It's a very heartless process. And the point of this fact-finding investigation, I think, is to isolate people, because usually there isn't a representative. A representative doesn't go into what is actually a fact-finding investigation, which is outside the process. So it's a little bit of trickery, really. And I know that it goes on in pretty well all workplaces. I've heard it from a number of different sources. And I believe that management are actually trained to do this. So you wonder whether an organisation like Common Purpose, which is a training organisation, actually trains managers to manage staff in this way, which is a very cynical way of treating human beings, or as they call employees now, human resources. So if the hospital concerned didn't do this, then well done them, because they would have acted differently from most other workplaces in the United Kingdom. But if it did do this, then this toxic workplace environment is what is actually responsible for this lady's death. Because it's possible to speculate that she might have experienced a reasonable amount of workplace bullying prior to this, and this possibly was the last straw. She could have seen this as leading to a disciplinary investigation, she could have seen this as humiliation, and she could have seen this as the potential loss of her job. It seems to fit in with the New World Order agenda that the workplace is becoming more and more a toxic environment. More and more targets, and we've seen the effect of the targets in some of my other videos in which people have been put on the death pathway because of targets. More and more pressure for absolutely no reason. And of course it ties in with the latest announcement by Michael Gove that he's going to introduce performance-related pay for teachers. Actually, to be accurate, he's not introducing it because it's already been in place for a number of years. But what he's going to do is to beef it up, so that he's going to take people who are currently at the top of the pay scale and he's going to try and take their salary down. This is really all about the destruction of the middle classes. And it isn't just teachers who are going to suffer under this new system. I was just talking to my son, who told me that Osborne apparently has to make 30% reduction every year in all budgets that are not protected. That is, all budgets except for the NHS and foreign aid. So it's possible to speculate that this will result in massive job losses. And where there aren't massive job losses, there will be massive pay cuts. So this is going to reverberate, I think, throughout the country. So meanwhile, what is the position for MPs? What would happen if we put our MPs on performance-related pay? Well, I think it's fair to say we've had a massive mismanagement of this country's finances. So the government would say, no doubt, that this has happened in other countries too, but that doesn't make it any better. The fact of the matter is that the politicians have been completely inept. They have been trumpeting the virtues of globalization, for example, and that flies in the face of common sense. It has never made sense to me that you could grow lettuce in the UK, send it over to Poland to be washed, and then transport it back. They talk about global warming, which many think is actually a hoax, but never mind. They talk about it, and yet they encourage this system which is completely wasteful. All the jobs have been sent abroad. We have our politicians to thank for that. And now we have a generation of youngsters who are coming out of university. They expanded the university population without thinking about how it would be paid for. They encouraged students to get into debt, and that debt is compounding. They can never escape it. It is absolutely outrageous, the whole business, and anybody with any common sense would have said so at the start, and yet the politicians have gone along with it. We socialise all the losses, and capitalism for our politicians means that greedy banks and greedy corporations wolf up the profits. But of course, as I said, the public pays because the losses are socialised. This has certainly happened with the banks, and it's happening everywhere. We've got a ridiculous banking system. If you don't know about fractional reserve banking, I suggest you look it up. At the moment, they're talking about printing to infinity. and we're going to have hyperinflation if that happens. That's a certainty. So that's the next gaffe that our politicians are going to make. Pay them performance-related pay? You really have to be joking. Apart from anything else, we are not just giving them a pay slip at the end of the month. We pay for their food, we pay for many of their housing expenses, and it's outrageous that this continues at a time of austerity for everybody else. Let the politicians find out what inflation means by going to the supermarket to buy food out of their own pocket. That's what I say. And if you agree with me, please check the like option. Finally, let us not forget the tragedy of Jacinta Saldana. I don't think your story has been told or will ever be told, and I don't think by any means that your misery has not been shared by many others. Rest in peace.